What's up, JEFusion fans? This is Phil, and welcome back to a brand new video. So, I want to talk about Kamen Rider Outsiders. So, to those of you who don't know, Kamen Rider Outsiders is a spin off series that's exclusively available on the Kamen Rider, or rather, the Toei Tokusatsu fan club. And it's a really interestingly complicated series, to say the least. Well, I have seen some of it, but don't trust me on anything. Like, I don't know much about Outsiders. Again, I've only seen some clips. I do get the general gist of this side story series, but as someone who hasn't seen everything, allow me to talk about this in a way that doesn't really spoil much. Again, I haven't seen uh, each entry in the Outsiders franchise, but as for all the things that I've seen so far, like previews and stuff that other people have shared online that are probably spoilers. So here's my own take and what I think about Kamen Rider Outsiders. So, with that said, let's go on with the video. Again, don't worry too much about spoilers. I haven't seen everything myself either. So, like I've mentioned earlier, Kamen Rider Outsiders is, I would say, complicated. Now, we don't really have like a main protagonist Kamen Rider, although for each entry there seems to be someone who's like on the forefront. And let's take, for example, Disaster, who I believe does appear in the first installment of the series. So he does finally become his own Kamen Rider with his own Seiken sword driver, his own Seiken, and his own Wonder Ride book. And we also see other people get like other riders finally get like upgraded forms. Like uh, I think the best example of this would be Kamen Rider Garen, who finally gets a king form after like 20 years or so, which is really, really awesome in my opinion. And we do see other riders again, for example, Kamen Rider Oja, Kamen Rider 02. So again, we do see new forms or power-ups, if you will, for other Kamen Riders in this series. But what makes it so complicated, at least in my opinion, is the fact that like there are like it crosses the lines between good and evil like willy-nilly, if that makes any sense to you guys. So let me explain as simple as I can. So if you look at the entirety of Kamen Rider Outsiders, most, if not every Kamen Rider featured has been a villain at some point. Now, Kamen Riders who do appear in the series as heroes are, well, Kamen Rider, uh, I guess Garen could be considered a hero at this point. I almost forgot, Kamen. He's from Kamen Rider Saber, but Ren from Kamen Rider Saber, that annoying kid who transforms into the Ninja Kamen Rider. I do love Kamen Rider Saber, but it's been a long time, so I forgot his name. So, if somebody would kindly tell me down in the comments, that would be highly appreciated. Now, the most interesting Kamen Rider in Outsiders that I have seen so far would be Kamen Rider Zane. So, with Kamen Rider Zane's appearance, this is where I would say, like, again, the lines between good and evil are very much crossed. So, let me explain again. I have mentioned, for example, Kamen Rider Disaster. So, the character Disaster was mostly a villain, during his run in Kamen Rider Saber, but with Kamen Rider Outsiders, he's actually basically the main protagonist, or at least he's one of the main protagonists in this series, right? So with Ben, they kind of, together they fight, but they also kind of fight each other. Like their supposed rivalry still remains. So we could say, however, well, Disaster has kind of been given, a redemption arc, at least during his last run in the series, before he was finally eliminated. But for some reason, he was brought back in the Outsiders series. I did see how he was brought back, so I'm not going to spoil that for you guys. But nonetheless, some people were able to bring back old enemies, and again, this time Disaster gets to be a Kamen Rider on his own, and he is kind of the main protagonist, as I have mentioned. So again, we do see some villainous Kamen Riders take center stage and appear as kind of, reformed, or, they do kind of get their redemption arcs in this case. However, I would say someone like Kamen Rider Oja, pretty much still a villain in my book, but like the recent installment of Outsiders, let's say Kamen Rider arc, seems to have his redemption arc here. Get it? Redemption, because he's Kamen Rider arc. So, you know, like it's kind of confusing at first, but once you look into it, things start getting interesting, right? So let me mention Kamen Rider Zane again, because he's supposed to be the embodiment of all Kamen Riders who fought for, justice. They fought the good fight. And looking at Kamen Rider Zane's powers, well, kind of similar to Kamen Rider Decade. Well, he does use Kamen Rider cards. The way he uses it, is just different. Like he puts the cards into his belt and like they shred the cards. Like, isn't that a waste? Like, that's just my opinion, but there could have been a more efficient way to do that. I mean, you could have just scanned the cards, put them back to where they came from, and that's it, right? But nonetheless, like I've mentioned, so Kamen Rider Zane's powers come from good Kamen Riders. Let me just set some examples. So he was able to use the Hauken Cross Saber. He was able to use like Kamen Rider Exade's finisher as Muteki Gamer. And again, basically, if you look at his arsenal, his entire ride card collection, he uses powers of good riders. But how I see Kamen Rider Zane, while he is designed to fight for good, again, he's supposed to be the embodiment of all good Kamen Riders, I think his sense of justice has been warped, and now he's gone berserk. So in order to stop him, like supposedly evil Kamen Riders have to fight on the side of good. Take, for example, Kamen Rider Gem. He's been brought back twice, and well, I do have interest in his Muso gamer form. So it is, like the Gem version of Muteki Gamer, but with the recent installment, he also has another form, which is basically Muso Gamer mixed with the Zombie Gamer. Well, I'm not sure if it's a power up or just a variation of that, but nonetheless, it's an interesting form. So again, we see Dan Kuroto come back, and this time he is kind of treated more like a protagonist. In this case, of course, well, it's kind of complicated. we know that he's been a villain for quite some time during his run in Kamen Rider Exade, but after his return, right? So he was once defeated, but was brought back, and then he did fight alongside the other Kamen Riders, again, like on Exade's side. So he was actually a hero at some point, but after that, he kind of became villain again, you know, with Gen versus Laser. But after that, so he was brought back thanks to Kamen Rider Zero One. So he became a Huma Gear. And, well, he has been in a quite complicated position. So whether he's up to no good or what, or he's just downright insane. I mean, you be the judge of that. But again, Kamen Rider Gem is also one of the perfect examples of Kamen Riders who, I don't know, like switched sides. Like he was a ping pong ball. In a highly competitive ping pong match, right? So one minute he's good, 1 minute he's evil, and then back and forth. Like pick a side, will you? But again, being one of those rare cases, that also makes him kind of interesting in my opinion. So again, here in Outsiders, he's sort of on the side of good. I'm gonna loosely call it that because, well, he is fighting to stop, an overly zealous Zane. If that's, you know, that's just my understanding. I haven't actually seen the episode, so if I'm wrong, please do correct me. Or if that's gonna be spoiler, I think it's you're free not to correct me, but that's just how I see it. But if my instincts serve me right, the main villain of this side story series would be Kamen Rider Zane. And a lot of Kamen Riders, like villainous Kamen Riders, have come back. So recently, Kamen Rider Evil has come back, and apparently with a new form. But he's taking Zane's side, or at least that's how I see it. Considering how tricky Evolto is, he could also be fighting for the good guys now. I mean, thanks to Santo and the other Kamen Riders, he has, instead of, destroying the entirety of the human race, well, he has learned or he has gained some interest in humanity. And I guess we could see at the end, especially of Kamen Rider Build the New World, particularly Kamen Rider Claws spin-off. So we could say, at least in the sense, like he's become some sort of an ally now. So maybe he has plans to stop Zane by deceiving your friends, again, quote unquote, because this entire series, with the things that I've explained so far, can get quite complicated and confusing, especially if you haven't seen like previous episodes, or if you haven't even seen the series that were kind of involved in this case. So I guess if you want context, I would say like start from the beginning. If you haven't seen Kamen Rider Outsiders yet, I guess I should do that too. Maybe rewatch the beginning and see how things fit together. Although, yeah, I do see where this is going, I guess. And I've seen like kind of like where the other writers came from. Like maybe Kamen Rider Oja is gonna come back and in his own way, in his own twisted way, shows some heroic action. I don't know. That would be interesting to watch, though. But again, this is what makes Outsiders interesting for me. So this complicated story that makes you question, like, who's good, who's evil. Basically, that's the premise of the entirety of Kamen Rider Outsiders, as I've seen so far, which is, again, really interesting in its own right. So, if you are interested in that kind of plot, and if you haven't seen Kamen Rider Outsiders yet, well, I guess you could give it a watch. And if you're one of those who had seen each and every entry in the Outsiders series, let me know what you think down in the comment section. I'm actually really looking forward to how they would conclude this series, or maybe how long they can, stretch this out. But again, this side story series with a lot of twists and turns. Well, let's see if it could keep me engaged for quite some time, or maybe there will be just too many twists and turns that I would just you know drop it. So I'm still looking forward to seeing some of the developments in the story. So, anyways, that's all for today's video. So, again, if you've seen Kamen Rider Outsiders already, what do you think about the show? So, leave it down in the comments section. So, this has been Philip, and make sure to leave a like, comment, share this video, subscribe, and don't forget that notification bell so you get the latest from JEFusion. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.